The sun burned merciless over Montana Territory, 1885. Heat shimmered off the plains like water on iron. Ethan Callahan reined in his Appaloosa stallion at the crest of the hill, his weathered face hardening at the sight below. The wagon train lay in ruins, 6 covered wagons shattered like broken toys, bodies of men scattered across blood-darkened earth. No women, no children, just silence encircling vultures. Ethan's hand moved instinctively to his Colt single-action Army 45, the walnut grip worn smooth from years of service. At 42, the former federal marshal's eyes missed nothing. Not the drag marks in the dirt, not the shell casings gleaming in the sun, and certainly not the half-hidden figure slumped against a broken wagon wheel. Thunder, his battle-trained Appaloosa, moved without command, picking his way carefully down the slope. The horse knew death as well as his master did. Ethan dismounted in one fluid motion, spurs jingling against the silence. The figure was a woman, wrists bound with rawhide, dress torn and bloodied. Burn marks scored her skin where a whip had cut deep. "Ma'am." His voice came rough, unused to gentleness. Her eyes fluttered, fever bright and unfocused. When she saw him reach for the bindings, panic flooded her face. "Don't untie me," she whispered, voice cracked like the dry earth. "Just do it. Just end this." Ethan froze, the plea hanging between them like gun smoke after a firefight. In 16 years wearing a badge and 4 years before that in Union Blue, he'd seen what men could do to break someone's spirit. This woman had been broken in ways that made death seem merciful. "No, ma'am," he said finally, slicing through the rawhide with his hunting knife. "That's not happening today." Her wrist came free, angry red welts cutting to bone. She didn't fight him, didn't have the strength left. Blood, 3 days old by his reckoning, had dried black on her dress. "Name's Ethan Callahan," he said, lifting her with the careful strength of a man who'd carried too many broken things. "Former federal marshal. You're safe now." The sound that escaped her throat wasn't quite laughter. "Safe," she repeated, the word hollow as an empty chamber. "There's no safe. Not with him still breathing?" "Who?" Ethan asked, settling her gently onto Thunder's saddle. Her eyes cleared for just a moment, focused with sudden intensity. "Blackwood, Victor Blackwood." Then she collapsed against him, consciousness slipping away like water through sand. Ethan's jaw tightened at the name. Victor Blackwood, once a lawman, now something else entirely. He swung up behind the woman, one arm holding her steady. "Let's get you someplace safe, ma'am," he murmured, though he wondered if such a place still existed in this territory. Thunder carried them across the Montana landscape, past golden prairie grass bent low in the summer heat, through stands of pine that offered momentary shelter from the punishing sun. The woman stirred occasionally, muttering fragments about a school, about girls disappearing, about men with dead eyes. Ethan's ranch appeared on the horizon just as the sun began its descent, a modest 2-story cabin with a barn and corral, set against the backdrop of distant mountains. No white picket fence. No wife waiting on the porch. Those dreams had died 3 years ago, buried alongside Hannah and little Sarah. The woman roused as he carried her inside, eyes darting wildly before focusing on his face. "Catherine," she whispered. "My name is Catherine Wells." "Rest easy, Miss Well," Ethan said, laying her on the bed in the spare room. "You're at my ranch now." While she drifted in and out of consciousness, Ethan worked methodically. He cleaned her wounds with whiskey and careful hands, using skills learned on battlefields where doctors were scarce. The marks told their own story. She'd been beaten, burned, and worse. But she'd survived. That counted for something in a land that took more than it gave. Night had fallen when Catherine finally awoke fully, eyes clear despite the fever. She watched him warily as he set a cup of water by the bedside. I was a teacher in Boston, she said, voice steadier now. They recruited me, said children in Montana Territory needed education, said they'd build a school. Ethan nodded, pulling a chair beside the bed. But there was no school. No. Her fingers twisted in the blanket. There was a place they called a school, but it was... She swallowed hard. They bring women west, young ones mostly, tell them lies about teaching or nursing or honest work. Then they sell them to mining camps, to brothels. Some go as far as California. Blackwood runs this operation? Catherine nodded, eyes haunted. He has men everywhere. Judges, lawmen. I saw too much. Tried to help some girls escape. Her hand touched the worst of the burns on her arm. This is what happens to those who interfere. Ethan's expression didn't change, but something cold settled in his chest. He recognized Blackwood's handiwork. The man had always enjoyed inflicting pain, even back when they'd both worn badges. How'd you get away, he asked. I didn't. Her eyes met his, unflinching now. They left me to die. A message to the others. The sound of hooves pounding across hard-packed earth cut through the night. Ethan was on his feet in an instant, Colt drawn, moving to the window with the fluid economy of motion that had kept him alive through a war and 15 years chasing outlaws. A lone rider approached, pushing a lathered horse beyond endurance. A woman bent low over the saddle, riding like hellfire itself, pursued her. Stay here, Ethan ordered, though Catherine made no move to rise. He stepped onto the porch, pistol held low against his leg. The rider spotted him, pulled her exhausted mount to a sliding halt that sent dust billowing into the night air. Ethan Callahan? She called, voice tight with desperation. Who's asking? Rebecca Morgan, Daniel's wife. The name hit Ethan like a physical blow. Daniel Morgan, his deputy during his marshal days, the closest thing to a brother he had left. The woman slid from her saddle, legs nearly buckling beneath her. Her dress was trail-stained, her face drawn with exhaustion and fear. She clutched a leather satchel against her chest like it contained her very soul. Daniel said if there was ever trouble, real trouble, I should come to you. Her voice broke. He said you were the only one Blackwood fears. Ethan holstered his weapon, moved forward to catch her as she swayed. Come inside, Mrs. Morgan. Whatever trouble you're in, you're safe here for now. Once inside, Rebecca's gaze fell on Catherine, recognition dawning in her eyes. You escaped, she whispered. They said you were dead. Catherine struggled to sit up. They were wrong. Rebecca's hands trembled as she opened the satchel, pulling out a leather-bound ledger. I took this from Daniel's desk. It's everything. Names, dates, payments. Every girl they've taken. Every official they've bribed. Ethan took the book, pages falling open to columns of neat figures and names. Judge Hamilton, Sheriff Keller, Mayor Turner. Amounts that would buy a man's soul 10 times over. Why does Daniel have this? Ethan asked, voice dangerously quiet. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Blackwood has our boy, Ethan. Joshua, he's only 10. Daniel does what he's told or they'll... She couldn't finish. How long? 6 months. Her shoulders sagged with the admission. Daniel kept saying he'd find a way out, that he was gathering evidence. But then last week, Blackwood demanded he bring in 12 new girls from the East. Children, Ethan, not even women. Her voice hardened. That's when I took the ledger and ran. Ethan closed the book, decision made. He'd walked away from the badge 3 years ago, after bearing what remained of his family. Had told himself that justice was a fool's errand in a world where men like Blackwood prospered. But some debts couldn't be left unpaid. He moved to the far wall, removing a framed painting to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside lay an array of weapons, tools of a trade he'd tried to abandon. The nickel-plated marshal's badge gleamed dully among them, accusingly. Blackwood's men gather at Angel's Rest Saloon most evenings, he said, selecting a Winchester 73 rifle and checking its action. I'll start there. You can't go alone, Rebecca protested. Blackwood has at least 20 men. Ethan methodically loaded the rifle, then checked his Colt, the movements automatic after countless repetitions. I've faced worse odds. Daniel said, Rebecca hesitated. He said you were the best lawman he ever knew. Said you could track a ghost across bare rock and outshoot the devil himself. A ghost of a smile touched Ethan's lips. Daniel always did talk too much. Catherine spoke from the bed, her voice stronger than it had any right to be. Blackwood doesn't just have men. He has power. Connections all the way to Washington. Ethan slid the Colt back into its holster with a decisive click. Then I reckon it's time someone cut those connections. The night air carried the promise of a storm as Ethan rode toward town, thunder rumbling in the distance like artillery fire. Angel's Rest Saloon blazed with light against the gathering darkness, piano music and raucous laughter spilling into the street. He left Thunder at the hitching post, adjusted his gun belt, and pushed through the bat-wing doors. Conversation died like a bullet had been fired. A dozen pairs of eyes turned to watch him cross the sawdust-strewn floor. Nash stood behind the bar, hand hovering near the sawed-off shotgun everyone knew was kept there. The scar across his face had been Ethan's parting gift when they'd last met. On opposite sides of a prison wagon Nash had tried to ambush. Well now, Nash drawled, Confederate accent thick as molasses, if it ain't the former marshal himself. Heard you'd turned rancher, hiding away with the cows since your women folk got themselves killed. Ethan's face remained impassive. Where's Blackwood, Nash? Can't rightly say. Nash's smile didn't reach his eyes. But I can tell you where you'll be soon. 6 feet under, just like your pretty wife and little girl. The saloon went deadly silent. Even the piano player froze, hands suspended above the keys. Reckon you got one chance to walk out of here, Ethan said quietly. Tell Blackwood I want to meet. Just him and me. Nash laughed, the sound like gravel under boots. Or what, lawman? You ain't wearing that star no more. No, Ethan agreed. Which means there's no law saying I have to bring you in alive. Nash's hand moved for the shotgun. Ethan drew and fired in one fluid motion, muscle memory from 1,000 practiced draws. The Colt's report was deafening in the confined space. Nash staggered back, shotgun unfired, blood blossoming across his chest. 2 men lunged from nearby tables. Ethan's second shot caught one in the shoulder, spinning him into a table of whiskey bottles. The third shot went wide as a bullet grazed Ethan's arm, hot pain lancing across his bicep. He dove behind an overturned table as the saloon erupted in chaos. 3 more men drew weapons. Ethan fired methodically, 1 shot, 1 man down. Each squeeze of the trigger was deliberate, each target acquired with the cold precision that had made him legend among lawmen. When the gun smoke cleared, 5 men lay still. The rest had fled into the night, preferring to face Blackwood's wrath rather than Ethan's aim. Ethan approached Nash, who lay gurgling his last breaths behind the bar. Blood frothed at the corners of the man's mouth as he clutched the mortal wound. Blackwood? Ethan repeated, kneeling beside him. Where is he? Nash coughed, crimson spattering his lips. Old Crawford Mine, where he keeps the merchandise. A wet laugh escaped him. Won't matter, though. He knows about your lady teacher. Men already headed to your ranch. Ethan's blood ran cold. When? Now, Nash whispered, eyes already glazing. And when they're done, they'll leave pieces for you to find. Just like your family. Ethan was already moving before Nash's final breath rattled from his chest. Outside, fat raindrops had begun to fall, thunder cracking overhead. He swung on to Thunder, turning the horse toward home at a dead run. The animal sensed his urgency, hooves pounding a desperate rhythm against the muddy road. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the landscape in harsh white flashes. Ethan leaned low over Thunder's neck, pushing the horse beyond endurance. Rain lashed at his face, cold and stinging. Every second stretched like an eternity. The crack of gunfire reached him before the ranch came into view. Muzzle flashes punctuated the darkness ahead. 3, maybe 4 attackers firing at the cabin. Return fire came from inside. A rifle, methodical and precise. Rebecca using the Winchester he'd left behind. Ethan drew his Colt, counting rounds automatically. 6 in the cylinder, 4 in his belt. Make them count. He approached from behind, Thunder moving silent as a ghost despite his size. The first attacker never heard him coming, a knife across the throat, quick and clean. The second turned at the sound, shotgun raising too late. Ethan's first shot took him in the chest. The remaining 2 men turned at the commotion, momentarily confused by the attack from behind. It was all the advantage Ethan needed. 2 more shots, 2 more bodies hitting the mud. He approached the cabin cautiously, aware there might be others. "Rebecca?" he called. "Catherine." The door cracked open, Rebecca's face appearing pale in the gap. "Ethan, thank God." Inside, Catherine sat propped against the wall, Ethan's old Army Remington clutched in white-knuckled hands. A body lay sprawled across the threshold of the bedroom. Another of Blackwood's men who'd made the mistake of thinking a school teacher would be easy prey. "You're hit," Catherine said, nodding toward the bloodstains spreading across Ethan's sleeve. "It'll keep." He checked the windows, ensuring no more attackers lurked in the shadows. "Nash is dead, but Blackwood's at the old Crawford mine. Apparently that's where he keeps the women before moving them out." Rebecca's face crumpled. "Joshua might be there. My boy." "We need to go now," Catherine said, struggling to her feet despite her injuries. "They ship a new group west every month on the midnight train. That's tomorrow night." "You're staying here," Ethan said firmly. "Both of you. This isn't your fight." Catherine's laugh held no humor. "Isn't it? They took everything from me. My dignity, my freedom, nearly my life." Her eyes blazed with something that might have been hatred or might have been justice. "This became my fight the moment they put these marks on my skin." Rebecca stood straighter, the Army Remington now held confidently in her hands. "And they have my son." Ethan recognized the look in both women's eyes. He'd seen it in the mirror every day after Hannah and Sarah died. Some wounds went too deep to heal clean. Sometimes vengeance was the only medicine that worked. "We leave at first light," he conceded. The decision was punctuated by a low moan from the porch. Ethan's gun was in his hand before the sound registered fully. He approached the door cautiously, then froze at the sight outside. Daniel Morgan lay sprawled across the porch steps, blood pooling beneath him. His badge, the deputy marshal's star he'd worn so proudly, was missing from his chest. "Daniel!" Rebecca rushed past Ethan, falling to her knees beside her husband. Daniel's eyes fluttered open, recognition dawning slowly. "Becky? How?" He coughed, blood speckling his lips. "How'd you find Ethan?" "Shh, don't talk." She pressed her hands against the wound in his side, blood welling between her fingers. "Blackwood," Daniel gasped, eyes finding Ethan. "He knows. About the ledger. About everything." Ethan knelt beside him. "Save your strength, Daniel." "No time." Daniel's hand clutched at Ethan's shirt, surprisingly strong for a dying man. "He killed them, Ethan. Hannah and Sarah. It was him." The world seemed to stop, all sound fading except for the thunder of Ethan's heartbeat in his ears. "What did you say?" "Blackwood." Each word cost Daniel visible effort. "He ordered the hit because you arrested his brother. got him hanged in Cheyenne. 3 years of grief crystallized into something harder, sharper. Ethan had hunted his family's killers for months, tracked down the two men who'd set the fire that trapped Hannah and Sarah inside their home. But he'd never discovered who hired them, never knew why. Joshua, Daniel continued, voice weakening. Blackwood's sending him west. Midnight train. Tomorrow. His eyes found Rebecca's, tears mingling with the rain on his face. I'm sorry, Becky. So sorry. Daniel, please, she sobbed, still trying to stem the bleeding. But Daniel's gaze had gone distant, fixed on something none of them could see. His final breath escaped in a long sigh, the hand gripping Ethan's shirt going slack. Rebecca's anguished cry split the night, a sound of pure grief that echoed across the Montana plains. Ethan stood slowly, a cold certainty settling in his chest where his heart used to be. We bury him proper, he said quietly. Then we end this. Rain pummeled the earth as they laid Daniel to rest behind Ethan's cabin. No minister was present, no hymn sung. Just 3 souls standing vigil as one of their own returned to the earth. Rebecca knelt by the grave after they'd filled it, mud soaking her dress as she placed Daniel's spare badge, the one he'd kept in his desk drawer, atop the mounded soil. He was a good man, she whispered, before all this. He died trying to make it right, Ethan said, offering the only comfort he could. Dawn broke gray and somber over the fresh grave. 3 figures stood on Ethan's porch, united by loss and a terrible purpose. Catherine, pale but standing on her own strength, wearing men's clothes borrowed from Ethan's closet. Rebecca, eyes red-rimmed, but dry now, Daniel's deputy badge pinned to her dress. And Ethan, the former marshal who had tried to outrun his past, only to find it circling back like a wolf to the kill. Crawford Mine is 4 hours' ride, he said, checking Thunder's saddle cinch. Abandoned 10 years ago when the gold played out. Perfect place to hide people who aren't supposed to exist. How many men will Blackwood have? Rebecca asked, loading shells into the shotgun Ethan had given her. Dozen, maybe more. Ethan secured the Winchester to his saddle, but they won't be expecting us. Not yet. Blackwood will think his men succeeded here. Catherine mounted her horse with surprising grace for someone so recently near death. Hatred, it seemed, was powerful medicine. If we're going to save Joshua and the others before that train, she said, we need to leave now. The ride to Crawford Mine passed in tense silence, each lost in private thoughts. The landscape changed gradually, prairie giving way to rugged foothills. The old mining road was overgrown but still visible, winding up toward a cluster of weathered buildings clinging to the mountainside. They left the horses concealed in a stand of pine and approached on foot, Ethan moving with a silent precision that had made him legend among lawmen. A quick reconnaissance revealed 4 guards, 2 at the mine entrance, 2 patrolling the perimeter. I'll take the sentries, Ethan whispered. Once they're down, we move fast. Rebecca, you find Joshua. Catherine, you help the women. And Blackwood? Catherine asked. Ethan's eyes were cold as Montana winter. He's mine. The first guard died silently, Ethan's knife finding the gap between ribs with surgical precision. The second fell to a precisely aimed shot that echoed briefly before being swallowed by the mountains. The alarm went up as he tackled the third, the man's shout cut short by a crushing blow to the windpipe. By then, it was too late. They were inside the mine, Rebecca leading with a determination born of maternal fury, Catherine close behind. The main shaft opened into a larger chamber where lanterns cast ghoulish shadows across rough-hewn walls. Cages lined one side, actual iron cages meant for animals, now containing women and children huddled in terrified silence. Joshua! Rebecca called, rushing forward. A small boy looked up, disbelief spreading across a face too thin, too old for his years. Mama, I'm here, baby. I'm here. She fumbled with the lock, hands shaking too badly to manage the key she'd taken from the guard. Catherine stepped in, steady hands making quick work of the lock. As the door swung open, Joshua flew into his mother's arms, thin body racked with sobs. Ethan watched the reunion for just a moment before moving deeper into the mine, following the tunnel where light spilled from what appeared to be an office. Behind him, Catherine worked methodically, freeing women and children, directing them toward the exit. Victor Blackwood sat behind a desk covered with maps and ledgers, revolver already drawn and aimed at the doorway. He'd aged since Ethan had seen him last, gray streaking the once dark hair, lines cutting deep around his mouth. But the eyes were the same, cold, calculating, empty of anything human. "I wondered when you'd finally figure it out," Blackwood said, voice casual as if greeting an old friend. "Took you long enough, Ethan?" 3 years, Ethan agreed, Colt steady in his hand. 3 years wondering who gave the order, why my family burned while I was away. Blackwood's smile never reached his eyes. "Justice, old friend. You took my brother from me. I took your family from you." He shrugged. "Seemed fair. Your brother was a murderer. He killed that family in Cheyenne, hung by a legal court." "On your testimony," Blackwood snarled, facade cracking, "you could have looked the other way. That's what partners do." Ethan's finger tightened on the trigger. "We were never partners. Just wore the same badge. And now neither of us does." Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "So what's it to be? You going to arrest me? Drag me back to face a judge I own?" "No." Ethan's voice was soft. "No judge. No jury. Just the sentence you earned." Blackwood moved with surprising speed for a man his age, diving sideways as he fired. The bullet creased Ethan's shoulder, spinning him but not dropping him. Ethan returned fire. 3 rapid shots that splintered the desk and sent Blackwood scrambling for cover. They exchanged gunfire in the confined space, the sounds deafening, muzzle flashes blinding in the dim light. Ethan felt a bullet tear through his side, hot pain blossoming outward. Another grazed his cheek. Still he advanced, methodical as death itself. Blackwood's gun clicked empty. He fumbled for shells, eyes wild now. "Wait," he gasped as Ethan leveled the Colt at his head. "I've got money, connections. I can make you rich." "You can't give me back what you took." Blackwood's face contorted with hatred. "They screamed, you know. Your wife, your little girl. Beg for mercy." Ethan's finger tightened on the trigger, then froze as Blackwood lunged forward, a hidden derringer appearing in his hand. Before either man could fire, a shot rang out from the doorway. Blackwood jerked backward, a look of almost comical surprise crossing his features as he stared down at the spreading crimson stain on his chest. He collapsed slowly, eyes already emptying of life. Catherine stood in the doorway, smoke still curling from the barrel of her revolver. Her face showed no triumph, no satisfaction, only the hollow emptiness that comes when vengeance fails to heal the wounds that spawned it. "The women are out," she said quietly. "All of them. And the boy." Ethan nodded, holstering his weapon. "It's done then." But they both knew some things were never truly finished. Some debts could never be fully paid. Some ghosts never stopped haunting. Outside, morning light spilled across the mountainside, harsh after the darkness of the mine. Rebecca clutched Joshua to her chest, tears streaming unchecked down her face. Around them, women and girls of all ages huddled in small groups, dazed by their sudden freedom. A young deputy who'd arrived with reinforcements Ethan had telegraphed for the night before approached cautiously, hat in hand. "Marshal Callahan." "Sheriff Adams sent us up from Promise Junction when your wire came in." "Not Marshal anymore," Ethan corrected, though the words rang hollow now. "But there's work for you here." He handed over the ledger Rebecca had stolen. "Get these women to safety, And make sure this reaches the federal prosecutor in Helena. Names, dates, payments. It's all there. Judges, mayors, even a congressman or two. The young deputy's eyes widened. Yes, sir. Will you be coming in to make a statement? Ethan glanced back at the mine entrance, where Catherine stood watching a group of young girls no older than his Sarah would have been. No, my statement's in there. Let the dead bury the dead. Sir, the deputy hesitated. Word's already spreading about what happened here, about what you did. The territorial governor himself is asking for you. Ethan's gaze fell on Joshua, skinny arms wrapped tight around his mother's waist. A boy who'd keep his mother because someone had finally stood against the darkness. Tell the governor I'll see him when I'm ready. 3 days later, Ethan stood on his porch, watching Catherine load the last of her belongings onto the wagon. The town council had offered her the position she'd originally come west for, school teacher to the children of Promise Junction. A real school this time, with real children. You could stay here, he said, the words surprising him almost as much as they seemed to surprise her. Ranch is too big for one man anyway. Catherine's smile held a sadness that might never fully fade. We both have ghosts, Marshal Callahan. Mine need a little more time before they'll rest easy. He nodded, understanding more than most ever could. The offer stands if you change your mind. I'll remember that. She hesitated, then stepped closer, placing something cool and metallic in his palm. This belongs with you. The marshal's badge gleamed in the morning light, 5 points catching the sun like a promise. Justice doesn't wear out just because we do, she said softly. This territory still needs men like you. Ethan closed his fingers around the badge, feeling its weight, heavier than its mere metal would suggest. From the doorway of the cabin, Rebecca and Joshua watched, the boy's face alight with the kind of hero worship only a child can offer. What will you do now? Catherine asked. Ethan looked toward the horizon, where the distant mountains cut blue against the sky. Somewhere beyond them, men whose names filled that ledger still walked free. Men who'd bought and sold human lives like cattle. Men who thought themselves beyond justice's reach. There's still work to do, he said quietly. And after? He met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. After might take care of itself. I hope it does, Marshal. She climbed onto the wagon seat, gathering the reins. Promise Junction isn't far. I expect I'll see you when that work brings you to town. Count on it, Miss Wells. He watched her wagon until it disappeared over the horizon, the badge still heavy in his hand. Behind him, thunder nickered softly from the corral, as if asking what came next. I don't know, old friend, Ethan murmured, pinning the badge to his vest. But I reckon we've got work to do. The badge caught the sun once more, the gesture as familiar as an old scar. Some men were born to certain callings, no matter how far they ran or how much they lost along the way. In this harsh land, justice didn't always come from courtrooms or law books. Sometimes it came from a single man with a gun, a badge, and the will to stand against the darkness that men do. And for now, at least, that would have to be enough.